channel so that people who aren't here tonight can enjoy the wisdom that Libby is going to share. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you would like, it might help Libby. I'm not sure. Maybe she wants to know people's Enneagram types. Doug's already added his. I've got mine. If you want to add yours to your screen name, also with your desired pronouns, we do that as a demonstration that we understand, especially this month, it's Pride Month, that we understand people identify differently. And the Enneagram really supports a base for that, understanding diversity and the power that is invoked by just simply sharing desired pronouns. Tammy says she's finishing her dinner, no problem. So I'll talk a little bit about Libby when I hand it over to her. I'm just so grateful for her being here. I do just love following her stuff. I post a lot of her things that she shares, but I'll talk a little bit about her later tonight. She's going to talk to us about conflict to connection using Enneagram Insights. And as we do every single time we circle up, of course, I love my tea. It wasn't working, but we're going to practice centering. I feel like centering, taking a pause, is at the core of using the Enneagram in any effective way. Until we can slow down, until we can turn inward, until we can see ourselves build that muscle of awareness, no change can happen. We can learn a lot. Been there, done that, learned a lot. Didn't apply it to my life. So applying it to our life starts by pausing. So I invite you to feel your feet on the floor. There is a lot of science around that. If you're opposed to it, that's okay. But if you're not, please touch your feet, tap your feet, wiggle around in your chair, and find a meditative posture. So in yoga, we lift the crown of our head, we drop our shoulders down, letting our elbows reach towards the floor, letting our hands rest on the top of our thighs. It's a grounding mudra. We let our eyes close or fall hazy. And we find our breath. So we like to use a Ujjayi breath, which is an inhale and an exhale through the nostrils. It makes a great sound at the back of your throat. That is also very grounding. And it helps us to turn inward, to let go of conversations, ideas, distractions, to bring your attention in and down, as Helen Palmer would say, to feel your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair. And in Enneagram style, this centering is about the three centers. So coming in and down into a connection with the innate intelligence of the body. Doing these practices builds the muscle to be able to do this. To find the breath, to feel the sensations that the body shares as subtle intelligence, to notice any tension, any resistance in the body, to breathe in awareness and to exhale that tension, that resistance. Take a few breaths. Notice the part of you that is noticing the breath, the tension, the release of tension, your parts, your pieces. That part of you that is the observer, part of the head center. That part of you that can choose where your thoughts go. That part of you that invites you into consciousness, awakeness, and presence. Intentionally connect to that observer. Scan your body again and allow a sense of surrender, engagement with your breath, and a state of physical serenity. Be right here, right now. Thoughts come, which they might. It's not about resisting, it's about choosing. Thank you for sharing. Come back to your breath. Come back to your feet. Come back to your intention to be right here, right now, with a conscious mind and a grounding breath. The third center of intelligence is the heart, and you might already feel that heart space calling to you, that space between your head and your body. You might find it helpful to bring your hands across your chest. Let your hands bring you home here. This third center of intelligence reminds us that emotions are not something to become or resist, but rather something to be curious about. Their information about how we're doing with our actions, where we're putting our attention with our thoughts. Let yourself come home here. The Enneagram reminds us that at the core of our being, we are love, unconditional love. And our journey starts by feeling it, by knowing it, by living it for ourselves. Can you feel that love at the center of your being? If you can't, just imagine, what would it be like? How would it support you in your confidence? How would it support you in your uniqueness and navigating the mysteries of life? Take a few more breaths. Invite all three centers of intelligence to be engaged, activated, connected. And when you're ready, come back to our space. I always feel better after a centering. So I've had this cold for way too long. And I got a sexy little voice going on here. All right, so on the screen are ways to connect with Libby. So her website and Instagram. And just a little bit about Libby. She is a certified Enneagram coach, and she is the owner of Expand Coaching and Consulting. Her passion is helping people understand themselves and others in a more meaningful way while also having fun. And I highly recommend signing up for her newsletter, her news that she sends out, her little blurbs. They're always so insightful. Libby has a master's degree in counselor education and over 13 years of professional experience. That's probably 14 now, because this is from the last time you were here. Uh, she's got lots of experience in leadership development and human resources. She is committed to providing an open and inclusive environment where all people are invited to dig deeper and grow. She lives in coastal Georgia. I just learned she's in the IEA affiliate in the Southeast, yes, Southeast affiliate with Doug. And I love it. I sometimes see post with her two redheaded children, two children, right? Yeah, two, um, and her husband. They all live together in Georgia. So do jot down or take a screenshot of the screen. And from there, I'm going to pass it over to you, Libby. And just let our members that are here, thank you all for being here live. Let them know how you want them to interact with you. Um, and let me take down my screen.
And I'll pop mine up there. Nancy, thank you so much. I really needed that centering, so I'm so glad you did that for us. And I really kind of want to stay in your sexy, deep voice, but that's really not authentic to me because I'm loud and fast talking, and so I can't stay there. But I really was vibing with that. So, all right, I am going to pull up my slides because I do have some visuals as we go through for those of us who are visual learners. But I do want this to be super interactive. I do have the chat pulled up, so if at any point you have questions or comments that you want to throw in the chat, please do. But also, I do love seeing your faces, and I do hope that you'll come off mute and we'll all speak to each other as we're going through this too, because there's a lot of wisdom on this Zoom right now. I know that. And so I am here as a conduit for us all to have this conversation. So I hope that that is the way that this goes. I am an eight, so I think it's kind of apropos that I'm talking about conflict. I actually did a TEDx talk in the fall called Conflict is Not a Dirty Word. So conflict is something that I'm passionate about. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a natural part of any relationship that we have, any team dynamic that we have. But how we approach it depends on who we are and how we view the world, and even just having that understanding of our own type, but then also the other types can just help us in that viewpoint. So, understanding those unique ways that we approach conflict based on our underlying needs, on the way that we project our wants and needs onto other people sometimes, and truly just using the Enneagram as a lens to look at the reactions of others, I think can be so beneficial. So I do hope that we part of my plan is to move from just talking about the conflict to talking about how we can make deeper connections through that conflict. And I think using empathy is such a great approach at that. So we'll be kind of looking at how empathy and connection can play into us improving how we use conflict, maybe being a little more empowered in communicating effectively, managing our own work and our own things that we need to work through, but then also using that as a point of connection and growth. So I always do like to start. Nancy talked about my ginger babies. So here's a picture of them, although this is a couple years old too. And it's okay. You don't need to age me in how long I've been working in this field either. It's totally fine. We don't need to talk about it. But I always like to share this picture because it's magical. And it's not just because we're at the happiest place on earth, Disney World at Christmas time. But the reason that this picture is magical is because it's a picture of my family vacationing with my sister's family. But those two ginger babies in front are mine. And when my daughter was born, I actually didn't let my sister meet her because our relationship was so broken. We were not speaking. I didn't want her to be in her life. I didn't want that connection to be there at all. So, how did we go from not speaking in 2016 to voluntarily taking this vacation together with just our two families? And it was truly because of the Enneagram. It was because I started doing my own work in it when I was working in higher ed and looking for a tool to use with my students. And then, as you do, you share it with other people, right? I shared it with my mom. My mom shared it with my sister. My sister started going down the rabbit hole. And then it was this tool that brought us back together and helped us to resolve our conflict. We were able to talk about it using this lens of looking at each other, and I believe give each other a little more grace and patience than we had in a lot of years. And so I was talking to y'all earlier about going to Alaska on Saturday. We're actually going to celebrate my niece's high school graduation. So I will be vacationing with them again, voluntarily trapped on a boat together. So thanks to the Enneagram, we are making that work. But that's my why. That's why I do this. And for 5 years now, I've been working mostly with corporate teams, using the Enneagram as a tool to help them communicate better and manage conflict better. But I start every presentation with this because I think it does tell a little bit about me and about my story, but also why I think that this tool is transformational because I have first seen it be transformational in my life and in my relationships. So I want you all to think of a time recently, or maybe it's not so recent, when you had a conflict. You were in conflict with someone. And I'm curious, and if you'll come off mute and chat with us or put it in the chat if you'd rather, what emotion did it stir in you? What came up for you when you were in that conflict?
I'll get us started. Through my two lens, it always brings up shame.
Mm,
I always feel overly responsible, especially when it's not, it's not always mine to be responsible.
yeah. Thank you, Nancy.
Well, for me as a body type, it begins as frustration and always moves to anger.
Yeah. Same, Doug.
Yeah.
I think I get overwhelmed when there's a lot of conflict. Um, and especially if, I can't do anything about it and I'm just kind of subjected to it and I feel stuck in it and it's overwhelming.
Hmm. Yeah, probably that negativity as a 7 too. Not
Yes.
to be in that space. Yeah.
Yes.
So, thinking back to the last conflict I was in, when it was happening, I didn't actually realize that it was conflict. I wasn't really there. Um, and kind of the rest of the day, I was like, there's something. I don't know what it was. And the next morning, I woke up super angry. So I think that was the clue, kind of getting back to what Doug said, like it leads to anger, but I guess for me it starts with confusion slash dissociation, just kind of feeling discombobulated, and I don't know why.
Yeah. And did you like spend some time digging into that? Like once the anger boiled up, like you were like, okay, what is this? And then realize the source of it.
Yeah, I kind of knew the source of it immediately. It was like I know that this is recent, and when I have anger come up, I'm like, oh, thank you for coming. Let's go hang out. So I went, for an hour by myself, and I just kind of was in my feelings because I was trying to figure out, am I resistant to what was said, or like what was actually going on there? So
Mm.
I got to the bottom of it with sitting with it.
Good for you for doing that too, right? Like taking the time and being in that space. It's easy to ignore and move on sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I could have had a donut instead and felt fine by the afternoon.
That would have been way better.
But, in the anger is clarity always.
Mm, that's so good. Yeah, I got into a conflict with my daughter, who's now 9, in the car earlier today. And then I went over to my mom's house for a minute and I was like venting about it. And she was like, Libby, she's 9. Like, you need to take a breath and think about how you're approaching this, and it was that moment because I was just ranting and that was, some of just the frustration coming up in me. But even just having that moment like she's 9. Like, just you take a breath, you set the good example. And I'm like, oh, I needed that. I needed to hear that. So yeah, sitting with it definitely helped. But that anger comes in hot for me as an 8, I tell you what. All right, so I do want to go through the types because this is an Enneagram talk, right? And I know we don't have all the types represented here, but this might be a good lens for some other types in your life or folks that might be watching this on YouTube later. And so I want to, again, use this as a lens, right? These are the people in my life that fit into these different types. These are the people in my life that I'm the closest with. So inevitably, I'm having conflict with these folks in a regular basis. I'm a solopreneur now, so I don't have workplace conflict anymore because it's just me, myself, and I. But those relationships that I work on, the committees that I sit on, the different nonprofits that I'm a part of, right? There are inevitably going to be times when these conflicts are coming up. And so how can I use this tool as a lens to look at these people in my life and to make sure that I'm managing that conflict with them in the most effective way? So I do want to highlight some of these general concepts, but then also resolution styles and then tips for working with that type. So ones in conflict, that's, inner critic's going to come up a lot. And that might even be the source of the conflict as it's coming. If the inner critic is spilling out onto other people, that might be some of the interpersonal issues that are coming from. But a lot of the ones that I work with, it's that should voice, it's the rightness in it when maybe you're disagreeing with the right way from other people, that frustration can surface. So really thinking about how do we resolve that conflict then? In a 1, a lot of times they're going to go to what's fair, what's right, what's the correct answer as we're moving through this, what's the right way to fix this problem. And so making sure that they're not becoming defensive in that time when you're working with that other person can be a good tip for them. But when you're in conflict with a 1, focusing on that collaborative problem solving. Like I always say, ask a 1, how should it be? Because they're going to be able to tell you, right? And so when you're coming to them and saying, tell me how this should be, tell me how we can fix this, tell me how we can make it better. And remembering when you're working with a 1, you don't want to feed that inner critic because you're not going to say anything that they haven't already said to themselves 100 times and 100 times more fiercely than what you're saying to them right now. So being mindful of that when you're in conflict with a 1. Now, my sister is a 1. And so I'm an 8. She's a 1. Can you see how we show up very similarly? We are both very strong personalities. As my mom told me earlier, she raised strong-willed children, and that's what I'm doing as well with my daughter. But how we might have had those years of misunderstanding each other in that difference between the 1 and the 8 showing up and this is the right way versus this is my way as an 8 and how that can be hard. So Doug, I'm going to put you on the spot since you're here with us. From the 1 perspective, how do you see some of this coming up, or is there anything that you would like to add?
No, you hit the nail on the head with all the descriptions there. And for me as a type 1, I feel myself when it begins. And I know that if I don't catch myself in the moment, sooner or later, I'm going to start talking downhill to people, which is a real turnoff. But if I let the frustration come online behind it, it just starts that never-ending spiral of going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts on the 1 or any experiences that y'all have had working with a 1 or working through a conflict with 1?
I love working with people at their type 1 for the collaborative problem solving. I mean, they are so much, their connection, I think, to 7 and 4, they're just really creative people. Just given a platform, they really can shine so much with problem solving.
Absolutely. Yeah, that question, how should this be? Like just let them run with that, right? Just let them take that and solve it and make it better, right? It's such a
Right,
beautiful trait.
right. Yeah, and they can be so creative
Mhm.
and so out of the box in ways that make it so much better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna slide to two. So twos in my life, I have seen, will avoid conflict altogether if they can, right? To maintain the harmony, to maintain the relationships. If they do engage, it's with the idea of wanting to move through and get to peace. Wanting to make sure that we are maintaining the relationship in this, that we're having the hard conversations so that we can move through it and have our relationship come out stronger on the other side. No surprise that a two might sacrifice their own needs in that process. That's going to be a common reoccurring theme that they are going to put aside their needs for the betterment of the situation and of the relationship. Setting those boundaries can be beneficial when we're trying to resolve something, and making sure also that you're appreciating that too throughout that process. If you can take that time to encourage them, recognize them, appreciate them throughout the resolution, then that's only going to expedite the resolution and make it better. So making sure that you're also acknowledging those feelings in that. I know a lot of twos in my life, they do tend to wear their emotions a little more readily. And so sometimes it's okay to just expect those tears. Like that's just going to be part of it, and that's okay. That's the emotional release that needs to happen in that situation. So, making sure that you're working together through the process and not just putting it all on the two shoulders, to fix it and to make the relationship better. So, Nancy, I see you nodding. So I know you feel that too, but I'd love to hear your insights as a two and your expertise in this situation.
Definitely, I'm nodding about the feelings. Feelings are just so, so important to me, and to be acknowledged that you understand, my feelings were hurt, or I'm feeling upset. Just I really need to like have you verbalize it. I need to hear that. It could be my subtype, but I am not so avoidant of conflict. I can do conflict. Not that I like it, but I have, or it could be just family of origin patterns. I grew up, my father had anger issues, so I'm pretty comfortable with anger, and it can even make me sometimes feel safe because at least the other person is getting emotional. That makes me feel safer that I know we're both getting emotional. The thing I want to mention that I just wish I could just pull it out of me is how the pride comes up in conflict. How um, I can fall into just really thinking I know what's best. Really getting stuck in I know what you need. Why do you not know what I need?
Mhm.
Just had that happening with my husband being sick. I've been sick for weeks, and it's like, why don't you know what I need? But he got sick. I don't think he caught it from me. He's been out of town, and he's left me when I'm sick. And I'm like, I know exactly what you need, and then just sitting with it and laughing because it is one of my gifts, but I can really, in conflict, fall into that pride and that woe is me, and that emotional place. So emotions are a beautiful gift I have, and a curse I try to unpack.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested to know, like, how did you get to the point where you could recognize that pride coming in? Because I feel like I work with a lot of twos that sometimes even deny that, or say that it doesn't happen. And I know, you have a lot of experience with this and you're very healthy too. So how did you get to the point where you could acknowledge that and then kind of work through it?
Libby, honestly, it is hard. It is really hard. And it is, I would say the answer is 30 plus years of practice, 30 plus years of really doing the work and looking at that word humility. What does it mean? Looking at that word, what is pride? Where is it coming up for me? Really living the Enneagram. I have a type 2 group on Facebook that I post every day to it, get to talk to other twos, get to unpack it, to ask questions like, what is pride to you? How did it show up? And really looking for it in a very non-resistant way. But I can totally relate to you saying, clients are in denial, and it's not denial, it's completely a blind spot. It's
Right.
it's our ego does not want us to see that because it's how we're loved, which is a lie. It's really revealing, unpacking the lies that each, that's my lie, but every type has their lie. Since we just did one, it's, Doug could talk about his lie of perfection, like he's only going to be good enough if the perfection is there. So yeah, it's work, and I really would say I don't think I would ever be where I am today if I didn't play with the Enneagram every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such goodness. Thank you. Thank you for that. And even bringing up that lie, I do think that there is something to conflict coming up for us when we are being triggered by those fears or being triggered by those lies, right? That maybe the perfection or the pride is something that's coming up that's causing you to butt heads with people or to engage in some kind of conflict with them because you are denying that or
Right.
being triggered by something. And so that could even be a source of conflict in your life. And to recognize that is important.
Yeah, I just want to add one more. Like Russ Hudson said, what triggers you is about you.
Mhm.
When I learned that, I don't know, 20 years ago, that's been one where, when I'm in a conflict, to really take that home and go, okay, what is this about me? And most of the time, it sinks back to that shame. Like, I'm not loving myself. I'm not feeling that love with myself.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
two
Mhm.
journey.
Done. Are you just dittoing or did you have something to add?
I was going to ask, can I go back and circle back and do what Nancy just did?
Please.
For
Do
me, it
some.
was for me, it was the childhood message of it's not polite to show your anger. People don't like that.
Mhm.
So as a type 1, I've always eaten my anger. But what turned it around for me, as Nancy was talking about, is I ran across a quote, and it's by a lady named Lindsay Gallant. And she said, my therapist once said, anger is the part of you that loves you the most.
Mhm.
It recognizes when you're being mistreated, neglected, or disrespected. It's a signal to step away from places that don't serve you well. It alerts you when it's time to leave a room, a job, a relationship, or old patterns that no longer work for you. Learn to listen to your anger and make it your best friend. Only then will it subside.
Mm.
And these words have stayed with me ever since I first read them.
Wow.
And it changed the way I react when I now feel anger coming up. I start asking myself, okay, what's triggering me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow. I love, of course, as a gut triad, I love that reframe of anger teaching us something and being for us instead of against us. Like I can't wait to go back and watch this recording and jot that down and keep that with me. So thank you for that, Doug. Yeah. Wow.
I call it the anger alarm clock.
I love it.
Doug, who is that quote from?
Her name is Lindsay Gallant, Gallant.
Gosh, Love that.
So good.
She's an artist.
Hmm.
Maybe
Excuse me.
you could copy and paste it in the chat for everyone, Doug. Oh,
Oh,
you're muted.
I shall do that. Pardon me while I type.
Thank you. Thank
as
you.
we lose him for a second, it's fine. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, let's roll into three here. Sometimes conflict with the threes can turn into that competitive nature, that winning thing. And so they might downplay their emotions in the situation because they're so focused on the outcome and just keeping things on track with that. But those practical solutions are going to be important to a three. If they feel like they're being attacked somehow in how they're measuring up or in how they're showing up, that can be very triggering for them as well. And so I often find I'm married to a three, and so I am well versed in conflict with a three. But framing those hard discussions in how are we going to achieve success from this? How are we going to come out better on the other side of this conversation? How is our relationship going to improve by a facet of these hard conversations that we're having, and trying not to be critical of, that they are a failure or that they've done something wrong in this situation. So I always tease that the Enneagram changed the way my husband and I fight. It did not make us stop fighting, but it changed the way our conversations happen when we are having difficult conversations, and it changed the way we approach each other through that. And I've seen that, both professionally and personally, through my work with the Enneagram as well, because these hard conversations are important, right? And conflict's good for us. It makes our brain keep working, and it gives us that elasticity, and it helps us to see things differently from different points of view, and interpret other people's viewpoints. But it's not always easy. And so, through this three perspective, you're really making sure that you're focusing on success, how to resolve it, how do we achieve something out of this conflict, and making it that positive, forward thinking stretch from that. So, any thoughts on the three, or any examples that y'all have of threes that you've worked with or engaged with this?
I too am married to an awesome three.
Nice.
And yeah, I would say on the low side, the hypersensitivity has without the Enneagram, I don't think our marriage would work,
Mm,
because it is so important to be sensitive to their hypersensitivity. To see the defensiveness is not something to engage in, but it's that they're afraid.
mhm.
Um, the things I love about my husband is his reset to positivity, his resilience, and he really does want to succeed. He has a huge heart, center of the heart center for these threes, just big, beautiful heart. And it's just understanding that defensiveness and the hypersensitivity is about them and something I can support or tear down. And you love them, why would you tear it down?
Yep. Well said. Tammy, did you have something to add?
Oh, I was just kind of giggling at what Nancy said, but my son is a three. He's social three. And when I'm looking at the fears, he's such a hard worker. He just graduated from college, and in 3 years, he's motivated, he's completely competent. But I worry about him holding all his feelings inside. And he does have anxiety. And so, just trying to get him to talk and just about conflict type things, that he'll just veer away from it. And as a seven, I like to go on that trip with him. So the two of us together, we have great fun talks, but I worry about his just keeping all that to himself,
Mhm.
because he's so hard on himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my husband had some childhood trauma that he's still like working through in therapy, and I do think that some of that comes up in the conflict style as well, and in his representation when we're in those conversations of me not feeding that or like fueling that fire. And I have to be mindful of that because my tongue can be sharp sometimes, especially when I am angry or something's coming up for me, I'm triggered by something. So really, really important to kind of keep these things front and center in those conversations. All right, let's talk about 4. Definitely emotional intensity comes into play here. Again, expecting those emotions, but then also the ability for them to just completely withdraw if they are feeling like they're not heard or they're being misunderstood in a situation. So those feelings of what's missing or the inadequacies can often come up in a conflict situation. So making sure that you are acknowledging those emotions again with the 4, that you're allowing space for those emotions to be there. 4 is so great at sitting with other people in that darkness, but sometimes they don't have the people who can hold that space for them. And so if you can be really intentional about holding the space for the 4 to have those deep feelings and to have those really deep conversations, and then affirming those unique perspectives that come up through that, can help them to be able to resolve or to focus on the solutions instead of just staying in the darkness, and being able to kind of bring them back into the light some, but also allowing that time and the space for them to have those feelings. So any experience with a 4 in conflict or anything to add to this?
I have one that just shocked me. So I have a lot of 4s in my life, but this 4, this person, not a number, this person recently reached out to me. I hadn't, we kind of faded away. I had reached out multiple times when she just stopped showing up for things. And she reached out and she said, I've been doing a lot of work. And I just wanted to tell you, like 5 years ago, I shared something with you, and you you didn't give me the time and space I needed. It was in yoga class. And so I quickly apologized and said, I have no idea. Um, and gave her, acknowledgement, but that's just an example of the 4. And I said, I don't know if I could have been just wanting to start the class, like, it was a yoga class, but how sensitive they are to really feeling seen. I think it's hard. 2, 3, and 4. We're all, maybe every type is sensitive, but we're especially hypersensitive to really being seen. Um, 2s for appreciation, 3s for value, and 4s for themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a conflict that is now resolved, but it took 5 years for her, and bless her heart for her. I mean, kudos to her for coming forth and saying, this is why I disconnected from you.
Mhm. But she withdrew first and then had that time and space. But it
For
is
like
that,
5 years.
right? That's just a minute. But that feeling of I hold space for other people, why didn't you hold that space for me? Right?
Yes.
And why were you not able to do that? And that goes back to their seeing what's missing, right? That was
The
missing
depth. Yeah. Yeah.
with her and in what she needed there for sure. Yeah, and that's such a great example of how you can interpret the same situation so differently. Like it was a blip to you, nothing. You were just doing yoga class, and it was so deep and affecting to her.
Yeah, and how easy it is to miss this depth of the 4, because they are so complicated.
Doug.
Doug, I like Doug's eye.
Doug's eyes. Oh no, you're on mute. Do you have something to add?
I have a sister-in-law that's a 1-to-1 4. And she called me one day, and the short version was she had a guy from high school reach out to her, and he was just touching base with her because he had a terminal illness, and he was just calling to say how much he'd appreciated the kindness he had showed her when she was in high school, etc. And he asked if he could call again. And she said, "Do you have any advice on what I should say to him?" I said, "Well, he's reached the end of his life and he is trying to close, accounts that he thinks he might need to close." I said, "Just don't say something pedantic to him. He doesn't need you to say, well, maybe they'll find a miracle cure. You never know, whatever." I said, "Just listen to him. Don't try and fix his cancer." So 3 days later, I got an email from her. I opened it up and she said, "You are not invited to my funeral." That was the email.
Whoa, I'm shocked because fours are so good at holding that space.
And not
She,
trying to fix it, right?
well, she's a 1-to-1 for her. And
Yeah.
she's a definite push-pull for.
Yeah.
But anyway, it took quite a period of time before she was, and then she just sort of forgot about it. But
Say, are you invited now?
She'll
I
be
will
dead.
say,
She'll never
I will,
know.
I almost said that back in the email and decided against it.
Sorry.
That was a strong call.
Yeah.
Good thing that you didn't.
Yeah, bless her heart. I mean, I felt so bad for her.
hmm Yeah, that's hard. Of course, also not surprising that someone would reach out to a four with that depth, though, because, they know that they can handle it too.
Yeah.
So moving on to the five, fives definitely have this tendency to withdraw from the conflict. They don't want to be in it. If they are forced to be in it, they're going to come from a very logical, very analytical place, and try to resolve as best they can. Logic over emotions, first and forefront. But if you are challenging their competence or questioning their intelligence in some way, that's going to fire them up a little bit more. So giving them that time and space to really think and to process, allowing them to come to you when they're ready, because fives often can get peopled out. They might not want that face-to-face interaction all the time. They might need to kind of think about it before they come back to you, but trying not to overwhelm them with the emotions. So, on the flip side of our heart triad that we just talked about, now, we're trying to be a little more logical with the resolution of the conflict with the five. So my mom's a five, so I'm well versed in how she approaches conflict. And a lot of times she will just shut down and I'll be the one pushing, like, no, I want to talk about this. How can we resolve this? How can we move through this? But kind of giving her that space is always important. And being well thought out in whatever side you're presenting is going to be important when you're talking to a five through a difficult conversation too. So anything coming up for y'all with five?
My other son is a five. When you're talking about the whys of the Enneagram and your why, and I agree, it has helped me understand my family so much and to not personalize it. But I had to call him up when I was learning about the fives. I just got certified, and so then this is yeah. But I had to call him up and apologize for all the times I was like, come on, come out here, watch TV with us. Come do this, come do that. And what's wrong? And let's talk. And, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. I'm so sorry. And here I'm thinking I'm not doing a good job as a mom and I'm not including him. And he's just like, I need space.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. So I agree with you on your why. Yes, it's a lifesaver.
That's huge. All right. So talking with the sixes, that anxiety can come up, that tendency to overthink. Obviously, the trust being kind of a baseline with the sixes. If you don't have the trust there, then it's going to be difficult to work through this conflict. But making sure that you are, focusing on their loyalty, focusing on the trust building, and providing them with that sense of safety and security. Clear communication is such a big one with the sixes too, because if they feel like you're not saying everything that you could be, or that you're not being honest and truthful with them, that's going to immediately break that trust. And so making sure that you are, proving in being integrity driven with how you're showing up in that, because if they're questioning where you're coming from or what you're saying, then that's just going to break that trust and divulge into more conflict with them. But any experience with y'all with a 6 or an example to share?
I'm married to one.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And again, super helpful, to understand where he's coming from and just what goes on in the corners of his mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially on teams, I always talk about the non-reactive responses with a 6. And so if a 6 does share something with you that is a difficult concept or something that they're having a hard time broaching with you, giving them a really non-reactive response. So you're not adding fuel to the fire, like, oh my God, you're right. What are we going to do? What's this going to be? And like really fueling that anxiety. But on the flip side, not saying like, God, that's stupid. Why are you worried about that? Like, don't worry about that, because that's just as harmful when you're belittling what they're worried about and what they're concerned about. So staying really middle of the road and saying like, listen, I hear you. Let's talk about that. Let's work through this together. Like, I'm here with you is the best way to support a 6 through that situation.
Ah, great point. Exactly.
Nancy, did you have something to add?
I was just trying to think about how I had a conflict with a type 6, and um it was recent, and it was just interesting to see what was happening inside of me and what I was understanding about what was happening in her, and then the pattern of projection, um, the defense, and then the resolve, just really moving from 6 to 9. Like, can we just be done with this? And then looking at myself and going, oh, I didn't get what I needed. I didn't get, acknowledgement. I didn't get apology. And then giving it to myself. But yeah, it's the projection.
Hmm. So you said giving the apology to yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't get it from her.
Because we're not gonna, that's especially for my 2 lens. It's always about what am I not giving to myself?
Gosh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Doug, did you have something to add?
Wife who's a type 6. I wish I could say I learned this early in our relationship. I did not. But I found what really supports her the most is when when it blows, she'll keep it in until she can't hold it in anymore. But when it finally comes out, I finally learned to look at her and say, I didn't realize that in that particular way, or I didn't know that it had been bothering you. I just need I need to let her understand that I am as emotionally committed to solving the problem as she is. And as soon as she becomes convinced of that, she can take a deep breath. And I always ask her, I said, can you give me a half hour to let me think about this a little bit, and then let's sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. I so wish I'd learned that earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the strong points of the 6 too, is they are okay with give me a half an hour, or even give me a day, or even give me a week. Like other types, like Libby type, I think, my daughter that's the 8, it's like, no, no, what the hell? No, let's talk about it now.
We will fight all night until we resolve this.
So, the 6s in my life are okay with, yeah, let's take some space. Let's think about this. And I really see that as a gift, a strong point.
And I don't think it may not be a universal for 6s, but for my wife, once she has expressed her intensity of emotion and I've acknowledged it and worked with it and we're trying to do this, it's like an Etch-a-Sketch for her. She's, just pull the tab and she's done with it.
She's done. Yeah, that was my experience. I was not done, but she was done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fine though, because it works out well.
Yeah. Gives you
But Doug, I
space.
liked what you shared when you said you let her know that you're just as committed to it as she is, though. Like, I think that that's that safety and security that you're giving her that
Right.
gives her the ability to take some time with it because it's like, okay, I know that we're on the same page, you're committed, and I have that safety. And so we can take some time before we resolve it. So I think that's such an important piece of the puzzle, too.
And they display it in so many different ways. Like for her, she'll say, "Could you help me do this? I don't know how to do this." So I'll say, "Okay, I'll do it with you. Let me show you." And then I say, "Okay, the first thing you need to do is this." And she'll look at me and go, "Well, I don't think that's right." And at first, when she would do that, I was so, how did we go from you don't
Frustrated?
know how anything about, yes, thank you. How do we go from you don't know how to do this to you're wrong?
Right.
But what I realized is all she is doing is testing her confidence level in herself and that she understands it.
Mm,
But it doesn't come out that way as a comment, and I have to work not to hear it that way.
mhm. Mm. Like we all need to work sometimes in how not to hear things that way,
What did
right?
you
That's a good one. All right, so we got a couple sevens. You know, rather not get in the mess of conflict if we don't have to. How can we lighten this? How can we bring it around to something more positive? So focusing on the possibility, when you are jumping into it, making sure that it is a happy, positive resolution at the end of the day. And so, seven sometimes can try to escape or try to distract from the situation. But make sure when you are having those conversations that you are really sitting in the discomfort, you're actually resolving and moving forward instead of just avoiding the conflict altogether. So our two seven Tammys here, do you have anything to add from that seven perspective to help people understand it?
Yeah, I mean, it just, I notice it in myself and I'm trying to work on recognizing conflict and sitting in it and not just running to fix it. Or I noticed a pattern when my kids have left, I get another dog. So now I've got three golden doodles. And, yeah, I don't know. I didn't grow up with conflict. My parents never fought, and then they got divorced when I was in college. And so I think conflict has just been like, I don't know what to do with that. And it was just always kind of skirted or shoved under the rug, or I just didn't know anything was wrong, actually. I never saw them fight. So yeah, I think conflict has just always been, and just negativity makes my stomach hurt. Like I feel it in my body. It's a somatic feeling. Um Super uncomfortable, but I'm working on sitting with it. And in my job, I help people. So I am noticing sometimes that in conflict, I'll say, well, here's the good part, or here's, and I'm working on just, you know, letting people sit in their pain also. Um, so yeah.
Mm, yeah, when it's not innate to you and then allowing that space for other people, that can be a stretch, but being intentional about it is everything, right?
Mhm.
So good. Welcome, Paul. Good to have you here. All
Thanks
right.
for thanks for putting this on.
Thanks to Nancy.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
All right, rolling to eight. I've started this out saying I love conflict, right? I think conflict is a wonderful thing. And so eights are going to lean into that direct, assertive, confrontational. There's nothing wrong with that. Approaching conflict head on. I do think, sometimes when unhealthy, that can be in a challenging, intense, domineering kind of way that can really intimidate other people sometimes. And so I think it's good for eights to make sure that they're balancing that and that their strength and honesty does not turn into intimidation and fear-driven ways to approach the conflict. So, I always say, like, just go toe to toe with an eight. If you got a problem with me, let's talk about it. Like, come on, meet my energy. Like, let's hash it out. We can yell at each other and then, like, go grab a beer. It's not a big deal, you know? And so being able to approach it directly and firmly and really stand up to an eight is going to be important when you have a difficult conversation to have with them. And I know that's really hard sometimes. And, you know, I get brought into teams and there's a problem child, and the problem child is an eight. And a lot of times it is around this directness or this conflict that's happening that is being misunderstood or misapproached, or, you know, something's happening there. But just having that space to be heard and to have some control in the situation and to move forward towards a resolution with an eight is going to help them approach it in the best way as well. So I can't imagine any of you have had any conflict with eights in your life, but if anybody has any examples that they want to share, we'd love to hear it. So anything come up for y'all?
Well, my oldest daughter is a type 8. Um, and what I want to share is how uncomfortable our relationship is for my other daughter, my type 9 daughter, who cannot understand what you just said, Libby, that we can, you know, yell at each other, we can be snarky with each other, and we're better for it. We're closer because of it. And it's been, again, the Enneagram that has been so transformational for her to grasp that. The thing I want to say about the 8 personality that people don't talk about enough is the big heart. Like all that confrontation. And my daughter says, I am not arguing with you. I'm not, I'm not arguing with you, you know? And I'll say, well, it feels like you're hitting me over the head with a hammer, you know, not that you're just not arguing. I really feel attacked. And when we chat about it, she's frustrated because one of the superpowers of the 8 is this truth that, like, I can see the need, she can see the truth. And so, going back to that first question of how did I get there, having an 8 daughter who knows the Enneagram, who is, you know, got her PhD in psychology has been helpful too, to have, you know, to flush out and 8s are such a gift in my mind. They're gonna make you do your work. They're gonna call you on your shit.
Yep. And it's good to just appreciate it because it's going to happen anyway.
I
So
do. Yeah, I really do. I'm hoping somebody else has a story too.
My brother and my dad are 8s.
oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I think there is a big heart. Well, with my brother, a big heart, and my dad, but they're different instincts. But man, my brother, man, he will let you have it and won't back down or own anything until the hurt has already been established. And it's a hard one to get close to. When you said, just come at me face to face, let's go, that I was like, that scares the shit out of me. Like, I'm not doing that. No thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard because I almost like respect you more if you do. And I know that that's like weird, right? But it's like if you will just go toe to toe with me, then you have my respect in
Yeah.
some ways, right? Like if it's a healthy conversation that we're having. But I know that is a really hard concept for other people, and it's hard for other people to watch. Nancy, like you said, like your 9 daughter like doesn't understand that, you know. But it's almost like it, and it's passion too. I think that's where that comes from, the big heart also. It's like I'm passionate about it, so I get excited or I raise my voice or I'm gonna die on that hill, you know, because it's that passion coming through.
Yeah. And the protector part, I mean, I feel from her, she's always got my back.
Mhm.
Do you feel that, Tammy, with your dad and your brother?
I do, yeah, I do for sure. Yeah, we just have to go around and about to get it. But yes, absolutely. If it came down to it in a nanosecond, they would be here. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Anything else on the 8? And then we've got the 9, definitely the peacekeeper, and wanting things to be peaceful. And we always talk about conflict avoidant with the 9s, but I have found, and I know, 9s who are well versed in this understand too, like they're good at conflict. And so when they can learn to embrace it and to use it, they're good at the mediating, they're good at the peacemaking. That's all in their name, right? And in their description. And so they can be that person that's helping to make the conflict better and helping people to move through it. But most 9s just tell me, but I'd rather not. Like, yeah, I can, but I'd rather not. And I get that. But being able to speak up in the first place and share their thoughts and share their opinions are hard. And so if you are in a conflict with a 9, helping them have that safe space that they can share what they're thinking, that they can help recognize that working through that conflict together is going to be healthy, and that, we can handle this together, and that this is going to be a safe space for us to get through this and to have this outcome can be really important. But just because you're good at it doesn't mean you like it. So that definitely comes into play a lot of times with the 9. So, Sophia, I don't know if you have something that you want to add from the 9 perspective, or if anybody else has examples from the 9.
Yeah, conflict has certainly been a theme of my growth.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd say in general, 9s are good at not just avoiding conflict in like an unhealthy way, but also avoiding conflict to start with in a healthy way by saying, look, we actually don't disagree. We're agreeing on 95% of what's going on. And that can be like, it's something that I wish other types had,
Yeah.
like, because we do agree on most things, just as humans. And I see a lot of needless conflict come up. So I think that's one thing that's coming up for me. I also think that, I mean, when I'm unhealthy, I can do what Nancy was saying and what you were saying about the 6 as well, of just like, let me go to resolution as fast as possible. Like, yeah, I'm good at conflict and I can hold space if it's other people having conflict really easily. But if it's me, like, it feels so distressing.
Mhm.
And to the point that I see conflict where other people don't. Like, I had a thing recently with my housemates where they moved one of my plants and I said something about moving it back. And they said, "Oh, well, maybe it likes it better here." And in my mind, that was such a big conflict for me that I did something passive aggressive that I'm not proud of. And they came to me later, they're like, "Did you think we were being pushy?" And it's like, no, but I was perceiving it as such.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's an automatic folding quality that can come up if I'm not vigilant about that.
Mhm.
Um, I guess the last thing that was I was thinking about is, as I've been getting better at bringing up conflict and say, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Let's talk about it."
Mhm.
Some people in my life have been so amazing, and these are the people who understand the Enneagram. They're like, "I know how hard that was for you to say that. Let me welcome that. Let me, because it's not easy to hear."
Right.
And then there have been other people in my life who respond very defensively. And, like you'd kind of expect people to respond in a conflict. The thing is, it took so much for me to say that in the first place that I kind of need a soft landing.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that for anyone in conflict with 9s, like, even if you feel defensive, take a couple breaths and say thank you for sharing. Let's talk about this. And I know it's hard. Like we all get defensive. That's not like an easy thing to do, but boy, that landing really helps me bring it up that time and in the future.
Ah, oh, that's such a good tip. And this, I like the soft landing. I like that like visual of that. I always say safe space, but I like I might steal that, Sophia. I like that soft landing for somebody and encouraging it, right? So that they do feel safe to do it again in the future. I think that's so huge.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any thoughts from other folks that have experienced this with a nine or something to add here?
I was just thinking about my daughter and then Paul's son, both are nines, and how they're very different, and how, all the types that we've discussed, there are so many individual differences, and they both have a lot of anxiety. Um, they both share what Sophia was bringing, that great quality to conflict of, an example for my daughter is when she was much younger, she was really good at saying, "Hey, let's just sit down and think about this. Let's talk about this. Let's take a break." And she would really help me to get out of this doing, um, this kind of frenetic energy that I guess you'd think more of type 7, but I would have it too. Um, and Travis, just the wisdom that he can bring when he's in that soft place. You know, he- I listen to them. Like when they're ready to speak, they really bring great wisdom. And they can also really, really do a lot of what looks like gymnastics to avoid the conversation. And I think it's more for them. I think it's the gift that Sophia was mentioning is they do see the conflict. It's not that they don't see it. It's not that they're asleep to the conflict. They do see it. They have this innate gift of seeing all sides. But then the hard thing is for them to speak of their side.
Mhm.
They're really good at giving wisdom about, oh, this is what Libby meant, this is what Doug meant, this is what Tammy meant, this is what Paul meant. But when pressing them, I think I have several other friends too that are nines, and I'm thinking of them too. Um, the hard part is them to talk about for them.
Mhm. Yep. And encouraging that though, and helping them to do it, I think can be beneficial as
Oh,
well.
huge. And my first Enneagram teacher, she would say, with this kid, you have, when she says, I don't care, you can never take, I don't care. So sometimes, just like simple things like going out to dinner, she would go, I don't care, I can go either place. I would go, you have to have an opinion. You have to make a choice. And this is when she was in middle school. I'd say you have to practice building that muscle of saying, I want to go here. We might not go there. I just want to set you up, just with reality, but you have to have an opinion
Mhm.
and you have to say it. And she has mentioned that that was really good coaching, parenting
Mhm.
for her to learn to build that muscle that because nines know what nines are different from twos. We have a lot that are lookalikes, but I think twos, we we really don't, we don't know instinctively, but nines do.
Mhm. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's often like my first baby step with a nine. It's like you decide where to go to lunch the next time somebody asks you. So that is those decision making things that can
Build that
be,
muscle of
yeah,
expression. They really know the decision. It's just there's a block in saying it.
yeah, Yep. Speak it. Mm, that's goodness. All right, so I want to transition this into how can we use the empathy and the connection to help us in these moments. And so, making sure that we are navigating those conflicts. We talked about it being Pride Month and celebrating our contrasting worldviews and, approaching people with that empathy. So how can we kind of understand our self-awareness, the motivation behind our behavior, the motivation behind somebody else's behavior, and then really approach them from this place of empathy and connection. So I always like to provide tips, growth tips that you can come away with. And so I have kind of provided 3 different tips for each type. And it's my hope that just maybe one of them will, speak to each type, that one of these might be something that they need to hear. Nancy mentioned my emails, and I always just love when, and Nancy's really good about this, but, some other folks that get them will just say, this is what I needed to hear today. And I think that's why the Enneagram can be so wonderful sometimes, because it just provides us what we need in the moment that we need it. Like the universe is giving us that connection. And so this is my attempt at that in this time together. And I usually break everything into the instinctual centers when I'm presenting, but I just decided to mix it up tonight. I went 1 through 9 and now I'm going 9 through 1. So we're having fun with it. We're keeping everybody on their toes. But these are my growth tips for this. So how I can increase my empathy and connection. Um, so I would love for y'all to just read through these. I hate to read PowerPoints to people. So let's just take a moment of quiet and read through these. And then I do believe that no matter your type, one of these might still speak to you. So just let me know if anything's coming up for y'all.
I just I have to say that the hard one here has been, well, there's a lot of hard ones here, but recognizing that my feelings and opinions matter just as much as everyone else's has been layered for me. So there's a layer of not getting it and then you kind of get it, and at a certain point you hit this place where there's just the immense hurt that you have to work through, because it's like, oh my gosh, I do matter. And look at my whole life, much of the hurt from myself. So that's really hard. And then once you get past that, then there's another layer of, yeah, but what's my, it's just keeps going, getting better. But yeah, you definitely have to process the pain.
Yeah. And peel back those layers, right? I love that. Okay, so now we've worked through that, but now here's another layer that now we need to go through and keep peeling the layers back.
Yeah. But remembering that it's for the unity of the relationship has really been helpful.
Yeah.
Because when I'm carrying around resentment, we can't be connected.
Yep. Yep. Working through that connection. Good, Sophia. Thank you. All right. These are the things I need to tell myself now. Here we go. I will say a big one here for me as an 8. is this idea that I have softened over time. Because I think even my younger self, I would say, like, I'm not dimming my light for anyone. You come up to my level. I'm not lessening myself. And that, that was some pride in that too. But I do think this idea of softening has really spoken to me as I've matured and in my relationships, that I can soften my tone. I can soften um, how, if I'm trying to overpower a situation, or get defensive in a situation. And just in general, I think I've softened as a human being, maybe since becoming a mom, or going through this business ownership and things like that. And that I see that as a strength now, and I almost see it as a way that I'm stronger by softening. And it's a little counterintuitive, but it has definitely served me well in this process. So any other thoughts on the 8?
I just want to kudo you on that. And a comment from my daughter, Lauren. She says, I have found how the softness is my power.
That's
And
hard for Nate.
she's really softened, and she's found a wonderful, loving relationship. She's so in love. It just makes me so happy. And her and her partner are just so good. And she'll say, she really embraces the Enneagram, and she'll say, I've really come to see the power of softness.
Yeah. It's huge. It really is. I mean, it can be like a for 8s, but I think it's a big step in that health. Sure. All right. Let's read 7 and then get some thoughts.
I'm hoping Tammy, both Tammys, but Tammy, who was eating comments.
Enjoying. Any of those resonate, Tammy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've just been focusing on just taking a pause, and having that awareness, and being in the moment without being too far ahead or too far behind. And just having that patience with myself in whatever situation I'm in. My dog is squeaking a toy. That's what I'll put myself back on mute. I don't know if you can hear him.
I don't hear.
Okay.
My golden doodle was barking earlier. I don't know what my husband and kids are doing to him, but I've only got one. Maybe I'll get 2 more when my kids go to college too.
Mine as well. One is like 3.
All right, let's look at 6, and we'll allow our friends on YouTube some time to read through it too.
Mhm. Yeah, the last one. Sorry.
Yeah,
I like
That's
that.
me too, right?
Yeah.
Validating our own feelings and trusting that others are there for us. We can take screenshots of this and send it to
No, I'm not going to do that.
Just send it to your wife. No.
Oh, I'm
it's,
sending this to my husband.
it's a good one. It's really,
It's gonna start a conflict. No, that's right.
Dialogue.
well, if you send him this one, send him yours too. Like I always
Oh,
I always find that's helpful. It's like, this is mine. And then, of course, I think I'm being manipulative. And then I go, and this is yours.
And let's talk about them and how they intersect and what we can both
Yes, that's what I want to do.
good. All right, let's look at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last one, the focus on those that don't need the same level of intellectual analysis as I do. I think about that as being the differences between the types, right? And we're not going to change. I'm not going to completely change my perspective. You're not going to change yours. But if we can meet in the middle and think about where that other person's coming from and not project our wants and needs onto them, how much more effective can that resolution be? And so any of these tips that are helping us to think about the fact that the person we're in conflict with doesn't have the same wants and needs as us is just that basis for meeting in the middle with that. And so I think any of these reminders that help us do that can just be a really easy, basic way to do this. Like, even if we're not remembering all these specifics or we're not really even thinking about the Enneagram, we're just thinking about how can I meet in the middle with you, and not, moralize my point of view within it.
That was beautifully said, Libby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to think of the 5 in all of us as just that invitation into inquiry.
Mm.
So this is what I need, but what do you need? This is how I'm thinking, but what are you thinking? This is how I'm feeling. How are you feeling? And that holistic use of the Enneagram to invite in that mentalizing, that inquiry, that investigation at 5.
Curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity.
Approaching it with curiosity is a good foundational way to solve the conflict as well. All right, let's look at 4.
Paul's going to make it back to comment on the 3.
Very good.
He said his computer just trashed or something.
Technology, I told you. Again, this is a good reminder of meeting people where they are. So, good for our 4s.
Yeah.
We got Paul back to look at the 3 here.
Finally, sorry guys.
It's all right.
You got to read the screen.
Can you see it if you're on your phone?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So we're reading through these to ourselves, and then you can share if anything's resonating with you as a 3.
I can always slow down. No question about that.
Yeah.
Be hard to be transparent about my vulnerabilities. It's that image thing,
It's hard to admit that you even have vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. That's hard for an 8 also, because that tendency to protect our vulnerability. And Paul, I shared earlier, I'm married to a 3. And so, that 8 and 3, both of us not admitting the vulnerabilities or accepting the vulnerabilities, that can be kind of an interesting combination there as well.
Sure. I can see that. Yeah, just all good things. I mean, all good thoughts.
Good reminders. Any other thoughts on the three? Okay. All right, twos.
I think I must be very much leaning into the one because I would add on I really see the one and the four in me because I'll go into frustration and a pity party.
Mm.
But it's always just I just can't not know how to fix everything yet. Yet.
Can't not without jumping in to fix it. Yeah.
Yet, even if it's just in my head, I can hold back, but in my head, I just know exactly what is needed, and I wish I could. I hope to get better at that.
Mhm. That's why it's a practice, right?
Yep.
Just continue to work at it. And last but not least, for our friend Doug here.
The fourth member of the aggressive stance.
I really relate to this too.
Which one's resonating the most for you, Mr. Farmer?
The last sentence in type one, I have a mantra that whenever I'm in a conversation with somebody that's going in my head constantly, it's wait till they ask, wait till they ask, wait till they ask. Because the tendency is always to offer a solution or something that'll make it better.
Yep.
So wait till they ask, wait till they ask. It all resonates.
I learned.
Right?
Say again?
That's good for all of us. And sometimes I'll even ask my husband, like, do you want my opinion or do you just want me to listen? Like, do you want me to try to help or are we just venting? Right? Like, and sometimes if they don't ask, I'll ask. Like, I'll clarify and see what it is that they need in that situation. Because I have that tendency too.
Yeah. Doug, I know you probably know who this is, but there is a wise type one at EPP, and she gave me such a gift, even though one is a wing. But she said, you got to ask yourself, is this mine?
Mm.
Which is a lot like what you just said. Wait for them to ask. But it's been really helpful when I remember.
I love that. Like he is remembering. I like that. Is it mine?
All right, so I want you to think on this and maybe you have a thought for it right now, or maybe you want to take a screenshot of this and journal about it later or reflect on it later. But thinking about a past conflict that didn't unfold as you hoped or as you would have liked for it to be resolved. So I want you to think about, what was the situation? How did you handle the situation? And think about through your Enneagram type lens and some of these things that we've discussed today, what was kind of coming up with you. But I'm curious if you could maybe consider how you might have applied some of these tips that we just went through into effectively handling the situation in a better way than next time. So kind of thinking about, what did happen? How did it turn out? But then also, how could it be better in the future if we were more intentional, if we maybe were utilizing some of these tips? So does anybody have thoughts on that? Does this feel more like something that you want to do some reflection on individually? What's kind of coming up for y'all with that?
I think for me, the line that pops out is, I just want to fix it, and that's just my nature. I mean, and obviously what Nancy said. I mean, asking yourself, is this mine? Or do you want me to fix it? Do you want me just to listen, and be a sounding board and kind of say, isn't that awful? And go down that path. So that's a good, for me, that speaks to me.
Absolutely.
I just really like how your whole presentation really invites us to look at our patterns and then also equally be aware that there are other patterns that, people are navigating and how those patterns can butt up and how it just takes one person to change. If one person changes, the dynamic changes. And, you know, changing ourselves changes everything.
Yeah. Ooh, well said. Well, and you can only control you, right?
You can only control you.
Can't control them. You can't change what they do, but you can control your reactions to it. You can control how you approach them. And that can, like you said, change the relationship and the dynamics there. But if you can be mindful of where they're coming from too and intentional in how you're approaching them in a way that they're going to receive it best, then that can change the outcome as well. And I'll say, Nancy, I think you said earlier the thing about apologizing to yourself, or I can't remember how you worded it, but my sister never apologized to me. There was a reason I was not speaking to her. We never really resolved that, but it was a choice of mine to heal our relationship so that my children would know her and I would know her child, and we could be a whole, healthy, complete family for my parents' sake, also. And so that was a decision on my part, and how I am around her is a conscious decision, and how I can keep that relationship healed. And so I think that's such a great point of how you can control the dynamics of that, but you
Yeah.
can only you.
I think every type needs to hear you say that, 100 more times, because I think every type lens wants to control, not just the body types. We do it in different ways. The head types will control with avoidance, the heart types with manipulation, and the body types with direct control. So, but it's all control, just in different forms. And that's big. That's huge. Really, really huge for the ego to hear, because I know my ego wants to control things. And I think everyone's does. And finding that softening, at 8, humility. You could go around the whole symbol, wisdom at 9, and acceptance at 1, and humility at 2, and authenticity at 3, and depth at 4, and 5. What would 5 be? 5 would be inquiry, and 6 would be inner knowing, connection, right? And just the joy, which is what you just described with your sister, choosing joy and forgiving yourself for holding on to whatever it is she needed to forgive that you can't control. It's big. It's not easy.
It's not. And it's something that you have to constantly remind yourself of. It's not like, oh, okay, I just did this once and I'm good and it's going to be perfect from here on out. It's a constant reminder. It's a constant intention. Like, I think intention is the word of the game with this, right? It's being intentional in how you're approaching each other, how you're perceiving things, how you're interacting. And that is so huge.
Yeah. It's the allowance of humanness, to me. It's point 4, it's the point 4 in all of us, holding that spectrum of humanness, because it's not Pollyanna perfect.
Ever. Yeah.
In that humanness, I think, what I get from everything is that everybody has fear and everybody wants to be heard, but we just come at it from different ways. So if you
Yep.
allow that space for someone to feel comfortable and you give them the time to hear them and listen to them, I don't know, conflict might kind of disappear in a way.
Wouldn't that be magical, Tammy?
Or we can just have differences of opinions and appreciate that and like
Exactly.
and enjoy it and that's okay, right?
Want to go for the
It doesn't
judgment
have to
of
be a
it.
dirty word. Like,
Right.
And that comes,
Healthy conflict. Yeah.
yeah, that comes from the mouth of point eight, which is where we find it in the eight in all of us.
oh, I love that. All right, so I do want you to think, just as our time together wraps up, how you're going to apply this. And a question that I always like to ask is like, what is the specific change that you're going to make? So, what is something that you're going to think about differently or you're going to do differently as a result of our time together today? And it could be, super small, but it can be some aha moment there. But what is something specific that you will think about differently or do differently as a result of this conversation? Doug, I saw your hand right away. Do you have something?
I do, but I just want to thank you, first of all. Wonderful presentation. Number two, the last one that you have there, the slide that's up there now, is one of my close of day practices. When my head hits the pillow, I ask myself, did I get triggered today? What triggered me? How did I react? How did I bring myself back to presence? And what do I need to take away from this? Then the next thing is what I have to be grateful for, and there's a couple more. But anyway, and I found, what am I going to take away from this tonight is exactly what you said. I need to read your slides at least once a week to remind myself
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the great difference that we all know is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right now we have, I mean, there's such a desire for people to be right about everything that it's harder and harder and harder to have conversations with people because, like our personality, which never cares whether we're happy or not, it only cares whether it's right.
Hmm.
We have to be able to let go of that need, I think. And the only way to do that is to recognize the worth, value, and gifts of the other people around us.
Mhm.
And thank you.
Love that.
Thank you. This last 2 hours has just been really filling for me, and I just appreciate that from y'all so much. Like it's just good to just talk with such great people. So thank you for providing me this space too. I needed it, y'all.
Yay. Well, we're so glad you're here. And I know these questions and the sharing from the group will touch many people going forward too. So thank you all for being willing to be here and share. Anyone
Did you
else?
see? I put the anger PDF in the chat.
I saw that. Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Lydia.
already downloaded it.
Lydia, I love how you've laid this out for me. It just fits with my brain. And I really, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Libby, I peeked at your LinkedIn profile. You are a rock star. So congratulations on everything that you've achieved and good stuff. And I apologize that I jumped in here late. But as I shared earlier, get awareness, when you hear, when someone starts to share whatever their challenge is, I don't have to fix it. I mean, I can certainly, I'm key in, or it's something I can always improve in is not offering a solution unless you want it, unless you ask for it, versus, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? And, just chilling a little bit and just trying to listen more so. But anyway, quite an impressive profile you have out there. Congratulations.
I love what I do, so it makes it easy,
I can tell. It comes across.
Appreciate that.
Sophia or yeah, Tammy. There's Tammy Styles.
There's Tammy.
There she is.
Oh no, you're muted, Tammy.
Thank you. Yes, I've been taking this all in. And yeah, bottom line, conflict is hard. And it's so easy to, react with anger or hurt. And just as easy to, oh, I'm just going to avoid it, just ignore it. But yeah, just increasing that awareness and looking at things differently. Yeah, I certainly do try to approach it with curiosity. And I think another good takeaway is that old saying, do you want to be happy or do you need to be right?
It's a oldie and a goodie for a reason, right?
Time and time again, we could remind ourselves of that.
That's good. Thank you, Tammy.
I've not heard it to be happy. I've heard it like, do you want to be in relationship or do you want to be right? Yeah. Sophia, did you have something you want to share before we go?
Yeah, it's been a good presentation for me and just facing conflict at all. Like I felt like a lot of the slides I found triggering, just like reminding me of all these past conflicts that didn't go well. And I think what I'm getting out of it is I can go through these waves of healthiness and then get into more unhealthy patterns without realizing it. And so I just need to, it requires constant vigilance in a way, constant self-observation. Am I fooling myself? And I'm wondering if I'm not as open to seeing conflict just because it's, I'm afraid of it. But I'd love to get a copy of these slides and then I can be looking at it and be like, okay, all right, going into it with a 6 or whatever. Let me just prepare myself, I guess, in a better way so I can show up in a better way.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Nancy, can I just email it to you and you have everyone's contact, or do we need to gather?
Uh, Tammy K, do I have your email?
I think so. Tammy
Okay.
at healthyhealing.net.
Okay.
If not, I'll get it to you, Nancy.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know I have everyone else's. So healthyhealing.net. Okay.
Good.
Cool.
Nancy, do you have something you're gonna say or do differently or think about differently too? I'm gonna put you on the spot last.
Um, my biggest one most recently is what I said earlier is um I really can see Paul so the reason Paul has been in and out here is our kitchen's gutted and we have contractors coming and going and people picking up stuff and dropping off stuff. And so he was gracious to deal with the electrician, and that's why he missed the beginning of it. But with projects, we each have our own perspective of how things should be done. And we've talked a lot about how different we approach things. And so, my biggest thing that I'm working on is inquiry instead of pride. And to realize when I'm being met with defense that if I can just not react, it makes space for a lot.
Yeah.
Six goes to 9. I mean, 3 goes to 9. That's what I was trying to say. 3, 9, 6, the triangle that Paul dances in. So, yeah, this is such great reminders. I loved it, and thank you. And I know a lot of people will love it. So, thank you for being here, Libby. And yeah, what else do you got?
I mean, this is my contact information again. If any questions come up for y'all, I mean, obviously we all love talking about this stuff, but I do, love answering questions. I can offer any additional resources if needed. But I do just want to share my gratitude to you all one more time, just for your engagement, your vulnerability. Yes, thank you. Just spending this time together, it was good for my soul during a stressful week as I'm packing for vacation, right? because vacation's hard sometimes. But I really do appreciate it. And I am taking these reminders with me as I will be trapped on a boat with 10 family members for 8 days. I will make sure that I am approaching with inquiry as we're going through this. So I appreciate the reminders that were set as well. And I think that there was a lot of goodness that was shared here tonight. So thank you all for that from the bottom of my heart. And thank you, Nancy, for just, I mean, you've just been such a strong supporter of mine through this whole thing. And it's so neat to, be in the virtual space with people, even though we've never met in
I
person. And I
know.
just,
So one of these days.
I know, but I appreciate you so much. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for providing this space. And I hope everyone has a really wonderful rest of the week.
Thanks.
Safe
You too.
travels to you. Have fun.